Aloha, this is Steph. Welcome to Yogi Tea Time, episode 26. This is going to be on lessons learned from the Johnny Depp trial. So, welcome if you're watching this on replay or live. And just let me know where you're tuning in from. Welcome to my channel. So, we're going to be talking about the spiritual lessons learned from this Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. And I don't know about you, but for me, I've experienced some triggers, lots of healing. And when something is showing up in the collective this strongly for many to watch, that means there is a lesson that needs to be learned on a collective level, and it's mirroring all of us. So it's not just about a celebrity, and it's not something that we should take lightly. Also, it's not a reality show. This was a real trial that was televised involving real people. So let me know where you're tuning in from, and I'm going to be looking to side from time to time so that I can change my overlay and check on the comments. So welcome. Yogi Tea Time. I normally do this once a month, covering various topics to have an afternoon break with you all virtually, having a little tea time with you all virtually. And today I'm drinking dandelion root tea, which is good for the liver. So cheers to you. And then just to have high vibe conversation, especially because we're going to be talking about some topics that are hard to talk about sometimes. I'm also burning a white candle. I don't want to tilt it, with some sage in here. It's a white tea light candle inside Himalayan salt lamp. So salt lamp, these salt candle holders and salt lamps made of Himalayan pink salt. They're great for cleansing. Also, the sage is very cleansing. White candle is very cleansing. So I'm just containing a very cleansed, high vibe space to bring this conversation to you today. And if you're watching this on replay, feel free to comment in the comment section to support each other. And you will watch this exactly at the time you're meant to. And I'll also check in the comments from here from time to time to be able to answer any questions or just to give you support. So feel free to do that. And definitely, if you're joining live, feel free to comment live. So, universe always has a great sense of humor, and there is no coincidence. So I'm starting this conversation by sharing with you that today, June 1st, Wednesday, is World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. So it's no coincidence that the verdict came on this date. And then I think I've stopped explaining that normally I do this tea time covering various conversation on Thursday, first Thursdays of the month. But this month, I have a schedule conflict. So Thursday afternoon tomorrow, I have a Zoom class I have to teach. That is not part of my normal schedule. So I decided to move up the day, and then it's just perfectly aligned because it's first of the month anyway. So I decided to schedule it for today, Wednesday, June 1st at 4 p.m. And normally it's done at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I'm in LA, Los Angeles, California. But intuitively, I kind of had a feeling that the verdict might come out today. So it just worked out perfectly that I'm bringing this to you exactly on this verdict day. And it just happens to be this World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. So if you haven't been following and don't know the outcome, Johnny Depp pretty much won on all defamation points, and Amber Heard won on one of them, but it's pretty much a Johnny Depp win. So I'm a Johnny Depp fan. I've been a fan of his since 21 21 Street Jump. What is it? I'm blanking. 21 Jump Street. So I'm dating myself, but I've been a fan of his since then. And my favorite Johnny Depp movie is Edward Scissorhand. And I used to design DVD menus before I became a yoga teacher. So for 16 years, I've designed over hundreds of DVDs, and I even forgot. I forget the projects that I've worked on. And during the trial, Johnny Depp says he's pretty much doesn't remember many of his movies that he's done. He also doesn't seem like he watches most of his movies either. He doesn't like to watch himself. There are a lot of actors who don't like to watch themselves. And but the one movie he remembered during his testimony was The Tourist, and coincidentally, that's one of the DVD menus that I've designed and worked on, and that triggered my memory that I worked on that. So I thought that was kind of funny that happened. But this is, for those of you that's followed it closely, it's pretty much evident that Johnny Depp was actually the victim. So this is balancing out the masculine and the feminine, divine masculine, divine feminine. And we are moving into this area as we ascend and as the earth ascend. We are moving to an era where we need to balance the masculine and the feminine. And the Me Too movement is definitely very important for the female victims specifically to voice their opinion and be heard and not be overpowered by this patriarchy, toxic masculine, and be able to speak up and be heard so that they can be healed, acknowledged, and be compensated. However, sometimes there's always shadow side to everything. So it could have gone, there's a part of Me Too movement if it goes too far. And also Me Too movement shouldn't just have females, but also any victims that are silenced to be able um, to voice their opinion or not be judged. And oftentimes the male victims are too ashamed to even admit that they've been abused by a female, because then they're shown as really weak. But it happens more often than not. So this is an opportunity for us to balance the divine masculine, divine feminine within us. And when we heal from this toxic masculinity, the shadow side of divine masculine, divine feminine is a toxic feminine, toxic masculine. So we need to just balance that out and rise above. And in order to do that, a lot of times we have to look at the dark side, the shadow side, and work out the shadow side, the triggers, so that you heal, feel, and heal, and get any help and all the tools that you need to move forward and heal from those. So this case highlighted the toxic feminine, and that males can be victims of domestic abuse. And in this case, we're not diagnosing anyone. It seems like there is some sort of personality disorder. And one of the psychologists that came on as a witness for Johnny Depp's side, Dr. Curry, she testified that she scored very high on the borderline disorder, and it kind of falls under the narcissism, which is why it's kind of no coincidence that the verdict came on the World Narcissistic Awareness Day. So I don't want to get too in-depth into the psychological aspect or specific diagnosis. We are not here to diagnose anybody, especially if even the witnesses that did all these tests, they're not Amber Heard's therapist, so they can't really diagnose her either. So we can't really take their testimony and label. So we just want to make sure that we are practicing unity consciousness, and everyone deserves compassion. The higher selves of everyone is all love. So everyone still deserves that compassion and love. And we are here to practice unity consciousness of practicing non-judgment and no labeling. However, it's seeming, based on the Dr. Curry's profiling, there's a high chance that Amber Heard she may have some type of personality disorder. If that is the case, then she does, in her mind, really believes that she really experienced what she's accusing Johnny Depp of, and that she is believing in what she's saying, and she's convinced herself of the lies that looks very obvious as lies as her truth, which is why she kept subconsciously referring to it as her truth, as Emily D. Baker, who has pointed out that she found it interesting that Amber Heard kept referring to her truth, and Johnny Depp kept referring it to as the truth. So let me know what you think about that. So we are wishing healing and compassion for all. And at the end of the day, everyone that's been involved in this case, that is all of us that's even watched it, because there were a lot of horrible depictions of what happened that we're all tuning into. So we're taking it all in, and of all these verbal abuse and descriptions of physical abuse that might have happened or not happened. Just hearing those descriptions could be very triggering, and it could also lower our vibration. That's why it's important to do counter by practicing self-care. And also, when you're watching anything that could lower your vibration, you can also set an intention before you watch anything like that, especially when you know ahead of time what's coming. Um, to be an observer and to not take the negative energy in as your truth or be programmed by them. So you set an intention. I'm here to observe and only allow the truth to be seen and to not absorb those negative energies. So that kind of helps, but it's not always going to work 100%, but it does protect you to some level when you watch it with that intention already set going in. And then afterwards, if you felt any trigger, let yourself feel, get the help you need. And you can also do self-care practices like restorative yoga. So I've uploaded restorative yoga practices to soothe the nervous system, because the triggers can really put havoc on your nervous system. But it's also showing you where you need to heal. So when we're watching this collective events that came up, and there's a reason why the whole world was tuned into it, not just because he's a big star, but there was something about this case that everyone was drawn to. And the teachings will take you to wherever you need to go. When you make a commitment to heal yourself and show up for yourself, you will be guided to certain events and certain, even online, certain things, certain channels. And for me, in the spiritual yoga world, people really condemn listening to or tuning into celebrity things or pop culture. They like to be very isolated and to just raising the vibration. Anything that might lower your vibration, they really like to shun away from. And sometimes they can be very judgmental in getting involved with these type of topics or tuning into these type of subjects, especially with celebrities, pop culture. And even though I've been a Johnny Depp fan for a long time, I'm not the fangirling type at this moment with him, but I do always appreciate creatives, which is why my channel is focused on helping everyone become more creative. And I come from a creative background, creative family, but your authentic creativity is not just about art, but it's anything you do in life that you're called to do, and showing up to do it your own way, guided by your soul, your higher self, and we all have our soul prints that we came to this earth with. For some reason, my video is not working. It's weird. Oh, oh. I forgot to. Sorry, I had a. Forgot to put the do not disturb on. So, what was I saying? So, even though I'm a fan of the arts, I'm here to be objective, non-biased, and look for the truth. And oftentimes, as an empath, a lot of us are drawn, or we draw tendencies that the narcissistic people with narcissistic tendencies are drawn to us for healing. That's like the dynamic that's very typical. So there's a big lesson for us to really see. And when we get involved in these situations, sometimes you get very blinded and you don't even know you're in until you come out and look back. So, these are showing us the red flags. And when you watch how other people play out, it's a great lesson for us to really be able to take those and apply it to our lives. Again, and not being judgmental also of ourselves and not being hard on ourselves. And the more you practice self-care, self-love, raise your vibration, then you're going to repel these type of interactions the more you raise your vibrations. But so we're wishing healing and compassion for all. So the reason why I brought up the fact that, sorry, I'm like kind of rambling, going back and forth, especially with that interruption. When we are also, instead of judging Amber Heard, we should all be uplifting and sending her positive energy so that if she does need help, that she will come to that realization sooner than later before she spirals down further and be able to get the help that she needs and heal. So I'll be sending that positive energy. And for us, for me, I never even knew I think a lot of times people just label people narcissistic. So as I was mentioning, the empaths have tendency to draw personality, people with narcissistic tendencies. And it's easy to just label anyone narcissistic nowadays very quickly. So we want to be very cautious about labeling people, and that everyone is a reflection of us and at a higher level. And this comes to the karmic relationships. So this was a display of, regardless of who won, this was a karmic relationship. And in terms of unity consciousness, a lot of these things that show up for us in the mass media, and especially during the pandemic, or anytime there's a vote that happens, it's very divisive, and it's like team this, team that. So even though I was mostly team Johnny Depp, I try my best to stay neutral the best way I can and not be biased when looking at all the evidences, watching the trial. So you're constantly, we're humans, so we're going to do that, but you constantly bring yourself back. And this was a great lesson in how the karmic relationships work. So there's no one to blame because they came together for a reason. And even though they both went through a very hard, extremely traumatic experiences, this is a karmic relationship. So karmic relationships, if you believe in the soul contracts, we all have our soul contracts that we come to this earth with. And if you don't resonate with this, you can just leave it, because there's lot of other lessons that you could learn, and just in terms of triggers that you might have experienced, a lot of inner child healing or relationship healing. But these things happen oftentimes because of the karmic relationship. So people who trigger to that level are normally karmic relationships, not soulmates. And sometimes soulmates can have certain karmic relationships, but this was a very extreme dramatic case of a karmic relationship that got displayed, and we got to see all the details of these two celebrities that are reminding that they are human, that need deep healing. So karmic relationships come with soul contracts. So they could have, in a past life, they could have been, brother and sister, or even like husband and wife that were very loving. But then this lifetime, they might decide, or they could have been enemies. And then this lifetime, they might come to work it out, whatever lessons they didn't finish. Or even if they could have been really good, even if they could have had really good relationship in the past life, sometimes the people that love us the most will volunteer to play this villain type to help you heal, to help your soul ascend and elevate to the next level, to experience, because we come here to experience different things and grow. So for your highest growth, sometimes some people that were really close to you can play this type of person. So when you meet them, you're automatically attracted to them. And then the reason they didn't leave each other for as long as they would have, you would ask, why didn't she leave him, or him leave her the first instance, or when the red flag was there? That's because they haven't worked out their karmic relationship, the lessons that they need to. And then once they've triggered for you to work with those traumas or healing that you need to do, and once you've processed, then you would usually part ways and move on to the next level of healing and ascension. So that's what got played out. And it was very clear that this was a lesson for us collectively from watching to clear our karmic patterns and karmic relationships. So I'm going to throw out a question. What triggers did you experience from watching? So we all come with different experiences, different perspective, and this is an American trial, but so many people from all over the world tuned in. So as I've mentioned at the beginning of this live, I mentioned that I watched most of the trial with Emily D. Baker's Law Nerd community. And I watched their channel grow significantly throughout these 2 weeks. And I have been trying to avoid it. So for the first, I think I only tuned in halfway through the trial because, it's so hard not to even hear anything about it. And so I'm going to share some triggers that I've experienced that I got to heal and look at. And so this is more personal and subjective, and it's just my experience, my opinions. And in my channel, you can have your own experience. I mean, you can share your own experience, your own opinions, and we don't have to agree. And we all have our different perspectives and experiences that we bring. So this is a chance for us to discuss in a high conscious level with lots of support and love for each other, compassion for each other, kindness, and just move forward in helping each other grow. So mainly, I've learned of Emily D. Baker from Think Media for YouTube growth. So I've subscribed to her, but when it comes to like law, usually I tend to kind of shy away from it. And because my background is with entertainment, design, graphic design, working with DVDs for so long, I was very engrossed and involved in the pop culture, the entertainment world, and especially mostly movies. So I used to be very involved in keeping up with that, but then, I decided I've kind of cut back on that a lot since I've been doing more yoga and Reiki. But then when this trial came about, it's just hard not to hear about it. So I just automatically, when I decided to see what's going on, I just immediately went to her channel to watch. And then I watched her growth. But I got to learn a lot about the workings of the trial, the laws in place, and in a fun way, in a safe space with the community. In a chat space that's very well managed, not to call anyone names or put anyone down, and be very focused on just looking at the materials objectively. And so that was very nice environment to watch it. So that's first, but still, you're still watching the trial, so you still have to put the intention to not be programmed or only the truth be shown, as I've mentioned before. And I when you grow up as an Asian American, Korean American, a lot of times our parents really pressure us to either be a lawyer or doctor. So that's another why this whole lawyer thing is very law. It's very triggering, and I tried to shy away from it, but I got to learn a lot for the first time, really tune in and really learn a lot about laws, the workings of the laws, and how the lawyers work. So that was very good for me in clearing that defensive or a block that I've had towards that whole subject. And at another level, just watching out all the karmic relationships. I've also tuned another person I tuned in during this trial, another channel, is the behavior arts. So he does the body language analysis. So it's very interesting. I've always been interested in body language. And oftentimes when you're highly sensitive, intuitive, oftentimes we can be judgmental in terms of, oh, this person's bad vibe, good vibe. You can kind of see through people's lies a lot of times, but it's good to have these more logical, objective ways of confirming, so that you don't just feel judgmental without no reason, even though most of the times you're accurate in seeing it. So it's good to just kind of learn those tools to be more discerning, because discernment and setting boundaries is very important as an empath. And when you watch these trials play out, again, not being biased, especially if you're a fan of one side, and giving a very fair listening in it from a neutral space. And it's a great practice of practicing non-judgment. And of course, you're going to fall in, especially when the whole group's seeing what is clearly the truth, what are clearly the lies from the evidence that's being shown. And it's so hard not to, it is a human tendency. We are tribal beings, so we like to be accepted and be in the community from a survival standpoint. Because when we were a tribal community, if you were different, sometimes you get casted out, and then you won't have all the people to support you to survive. So it is our nature to want to. And then when you're in this group, it's very easy to just get wrapped up if everyone's calling a certain name and having fun with it. So that's why it was even more important to, even though you still get somewhat into not name calling, but poking fun at certain things, coming up with certain nicknames and get kind of wrapped up in it. But it's nice to watch it from a space where it's not with the very strong boundaries within the chat, with the rules of not name calling or making people belittling anyone. So, and almost done. Last thing I want to touch upon from my, in terms of the triggers, what I felt the most trigger, was, and then another thing, that the synchronicity of most of this trial being in May, is that May was Mental Health Awareness Month. So I think it's not coincidence that this whole issue of mental health and personality disorder being played out in a very grand scale collectively happened during this month. And I got to learn a lot about borderline disorder, whether Amber Heard has it or not, just in general, the fact that it exists and the qualities that's displayed by people with those personality disorders. So it's beyond just labeling people narcissistic. And it was also, May was also AAPI month, Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So, as an Asian American, the thing I was triggered was some of these lawyers that came on claiming to be breaking through and changing how jurors are analyzed. And they would go to the court and watch the jurors, and they would give feedback as to what their analysis of how the jurors reacted to certain testimonies, certain witnesses, towards which law teams that they were resonating more with or being more attentive to, and whether they looked like they were team Johnny or team Amber, or hard to read, that kind of thing. And this was in Virginia. The trial took place in Virginia. And I wasn't aware, but apparently the Fairfax, Virginia has a huge population of Asian Americans. So there were many Asian American jurors that ended up in the jury panel for this case. And I was very offended by the jury analysis, especially the initial ones, where I'm not going to name who the lawyer YouTuber was, but he was very much stereotyping and thinks he could just label, this juror is Asian, this juror is Filipino, and they were really stereotyping. And I thought, as a lawyer that just went to a court case, a court that's not his own case, and watching it from the gallery as a spectator and making judgments of these jurors, that was very triggering, especially during the Asian American Pacific Island Heritage Month. Especially, this is a person that lives in Middle America that probably doesn't even have any Asian American friends. And the Asian American experience is a unique one. And especially if they're Japanese or Chinese. First of all, even within the Asian communities, we can't tell the difference until we ask. So it's just very offensive if someone just comes up and assumes and tries to guess what you are. And if you're on a jury stand, if you're a juror and got selected as a juror, that means you are US citizen. If you're not a US citizen, if you don't really speak English that well, you won't be selected. You will still be summoned if you have U.S. citizenship and you spoke enough English to pass the test to get the citizenship. You will still be summoned for the jury in the juror selection. But most likely, if they see that you can't speak or understand English, you won't get selected. The lawyer will probably reject you or the judge will reject you and you will be sent home. So the fact that and most likely, a lot of Koreans are, there's some second generation, but a lot of us are 1.5 generation. But the Japanese and Chinese, a lot of times they're even third, fourth generations. So when you're Asian American, your thought process, your experience is more like an American than whichever your ancestors came from. Some of them don't even speak Japanese. Whoever they labeled as this Japanese young man, especially if he's in his 20s or 30s. And a lot of times the Caucasians, they can't tell the ages. So whoever you might think is 20s, 30s could be in their 30s and 40s. So they had this juror chart that had the ages that they were guessing and the ethnicity or whether they're male or female. But when describing the Asians, they were very much trying to label based on the stereotypes that they had, whether they thought, and they kind of said it in an assured way. Oh, this juror is a Japanese in his 20s, male, female, whatever. This one is some type of Polynesian Filipino. So, and then they're doing analysis thinking that they have a view from those countries. So I would just like to say Asian Americans were more Americans. And a lot of times we get very disconnected from the country of origin, especially if you're second generation, third generation, because of because you're trying to assimilate and be accepted and live more effortlessly in the American society. So I thought that was very irresponsible and offensive that some of this so-called professional juror analysis were labeling with stereotypes. So that was the big trigger for me, but it's what we live with, and that's what's also perpetrating all these Asian hate that's been going around since the pandemic. And that's why they even had BTS come to the White House yesterday to release to bring awareness and put an end or reduce this Asian hate crimes with Joe Biden. So, you just have to send them love and just keep doing you. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to speak on this topic. And it's easy to go on their page and, try to straighten them out. But then you get into this, negative interactions online with everybody coming at you. So I didn't want to have that kind of interaction or go down to that level. So I decided to just not say anything. I mean, I did express in a very politically correct way at another page that this guy came on to express or to describe these jurors. But I said it in a very nice way, like Asian Americans are not often think more like Americans than the country of origin that, you know, they were trying to label. Um, so yeah, that was a big trigger that I still need to kind of work through. And I think during the pandemic, you're just owning. I think I've come to just connect more to my Korean side, and I've experienced a lot of inner child healing just through like discovering K-pop and as I've mentioned, I am a huge fan of the arts in general. Anybody who creates, I'm always in awe and admiration of real artists that really dig in and do their best work. And that's why these practices that I share and that I share usually deal with practices that I've done that's helped me become my most creative self, and what helps you to really tune deep within to flourish and unleash that creativity inside you. Whether you're a writer, you're a lawyer, you can be very creative in being a lawyer, as we've seen in this trial. So, um, so I just wanted to bring awareness to that. So instead of interacting too much with these people, I'm just collectively sending the message out. And anytime I don't avoid confrontation. If it was somebody that knew in person, I would definitely call it out and have a nice conversation. But in the internet world, sometimes if you leave a certain comment, it could just spiral into a very negative interaction. Um, so I wanted to keep it more clean, balanced. So this whole lessons learned from this trial is about just being unbiased, non-judgment, compassion, and balancing the masculine and feminine, and working out these triggers to really help you elevate yourself to the next level of ascension so that you can really flourish in your creativity. And all this negativity that Johnny Depp went through and him being canceled from these movie studios and projects that he was supposed to work on stunted his own creativity. So I'm wishing him, and I do really admire his work, especially, the Edward Scissorhand, the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I do love the Pirates movies. And he's one of these actors that really go deep into the character. And another movie that I really love, it's not as well known, is, of course, the Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas is a really good one. Also, but the least known one, not as well known movie that I also really liked was A Secret Window. So, yes. So definitely, I think it's very interesting that all this happened during the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So I just wanted to bring this out from in my channel, talk about it on my space, to put it out there collectively. So all this healing, unity consciousness work we're doing, when you show up for yourself to work on this, all the healings that you need and the triggers, the inner child healing, we're adding to the collective healing. And this came up in a collective space because a lot of us needed this healing. And look at it, it's a mirror. So it's no coincidence that all these events happened at this time. And we should also be grateful that they share this inner workings in the public. And the most important part is of this whole trial with everybody that's involved is forgiveness. And be in that space, open space for healing. And one of the best practices for forgiveness is Ho'oponopono. It's a Hawaiian prayer that was initially created to improve relationship with family, tribal relationships. And it's I'm sorry, please forgive me. I thank you. I love you. So I think after dealing with all the triggers, and if you're in need of self-care, whatever self-care that you need, be sure to take some time for lots of self-care. And if you need professional help, definitely reach out. There's no shame in getting therapy. And you want to use all the tools that are available to help you heal and move forward and be your best joyful self, full of love, abundance, and here to support and uplift each other. And one of the best ways to do that is this Ho'oponopono prayer. And I have a video where I repeat with repetition, 108 repetition of Ho'oponopono. So you can just play it and go to sleep so that it can work subconsciously, or you can just work on it, repeat to yourself as long as you would like as a daily practice. So when we do these affirmations, we're actually retraining our brain to entrain to these positive words and clear away all the negativity. So I'm wishing you lots of healing. And this trial was a lot. So I think I went kind of all over the place, even though I tried to have some bullet point outlines. And definitely let me know what triggers and healings you've experienced and where you need support. I'm sending you lots of love, healing, and also share your favorite Johnny Depp movie. So this was very different from what I normally cover, and I've kind of vented a little too that I normally wouldn't have spoken on. And I wish you lots of joy, healing, and self-care. Take good care of yourself. Be gentle and kind to yourself and others. And go within and find your inner sparkle. Namaste. So thank you so much. And subscribe, like, and share, and comment if you found this helpful. For more videos to help you be your most authentic, creative self using yoga and Reiki breathwork. All right, so to see you next time. And again, I normally do the Yogi Tea Time every first Thursdays at 4 p.m. First Thursday of the month at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any requests for any topics you would like me to cover, either on the next Yogi Tea Time or just a video in general that you would like to see on this channel, let me know. And I have a lot of different playlists for self-care, so as well as guided meditation. So check those out. Thank you again. Bye. Have a wonderful day. And if you're Team Johnny, enjoy your celebration. And definitely wish Amber, send some compassion, love, and healing to Amber as